Okay, take two. Welcome to another episode of Mr. K is Wrong, where I debunk the Facebook posts of somebody that I call Mr. K. He's just somebody that I used to know back in the day, and I debunk his right wing bullcrap. So I'm going to start this episode off sort of by noting that I recently had an encounter with Mr. K. He was in a gas station parking lot and he said hi to me, and I actually said hi to him. And I did not confess that I do a podcast that specifically targets his bullcrap online. So, it was awkward. I normally do say hi if people say hello to me back, but it of course does not mean that I endorse their political views or anything like that. It's just basic politeness kind of stuff. Like if you encounter somebody in public, you will usually hold the door open for them or something like that. So I guess you could say I acknowledged his existence, but beyond that, I would say it doesn't really mean much, you know. And let's move on to the main crux of this episode here. So the immigrant bashing Mr. K lies about the US Census. So he posted this meme that was originally made by Patriots United. So I have to say something about that. Uh, and I've said this before, but it bears repeating. If you call yourself a patriot, like if that's something you regularly use as a label for yourself, you're kind of pathetic in a way because that's something for other people to determine about you. And it's very similar to the rule about badassery. Like if you call yourself a badass or anything like that, you actually lose badass points. All right? That's again for other people to decide about you, not for you to decide about yourself. So it's an immediate red flag anytime an individual or an organization calls themselves patriot. All right. So that doesn't necessarily mean they are bad, but it definitely should cause you to raise your eyebrow a little bit. Like, what are they doing? Why are they trying to make a claim like that about themselves? It's really a propagandistic talking point right on the surface. So I would say it's immediately something you should call into question. Like, okay, why are they trying to frame themselves this way? And you might want to examine that a little bit. But anyway, the meme says Stephen Miller's plan to pull illegals from the census would flip House seats from blue states back to red overnight. Raise your hand if this needs to happen now. Stephen Miller is making the move that blue states have feared for years. This is how you take back the House without a single or without firing a single shot. So that's the end of the meme. It has a picture of Stephen Miller, that pouty looking Nosferatu. I mean, every time I see a picture of him or a video clip of him speaking, he's always pouting. Like he's a whiny little crybaby. Like I said, he looks like Nosferatu or maybe the vampire from Salem's Lot. Only that vampire is like he's got this blue skin. So I don't know if Stephen Miller has blue skin. It would be, something that I would hide behind makeup, I guess. So no, I go with Nosferatu, but he's a pouty looking, whiny ass Nosferatu type, and just an evil person. But anyway, the meme strings together a real policy idea with a bunch of leaps that don't really hold up. They don't withstand scrutiny. So here's what's off about that meme. First off, the US Census doesn't work the way that the meme implies. The US Constitution requires counting the whole number of persons for apportionment. That has long been understood to include everyone living in the country, not just citizens. And the US Census Bureau has followed that rule for decades for both parties. So already The meme is fundamentally incorrect, and it is a violation of the U.S. Constitution, in fact, to actually do what what this meme and what Stephen Miller is trying to accomplish. So, once again, the so called party of law and order is violating law and order because, yes, the US Constitution is clear that you are supposed to count everyone. It's not about their citizenship status or anything like that. It is just about finding out how many people live here. And attempts to exclude undocumented immigrants from the count have run into legal trouble. In Trump versus New York, the Supreme Court of the United States did not approve a clear path to do this, and the effort effectively stalled. So you can't just quote unquote pull illegals from the census by executive decision and instantly change representation. It would require a majority legal shift, likely involving Congress and or the courts. Well, it's guaranteed that the courts would end up being involved one way or the other. So another thing is that House seats don't flip overnight. Even if the counting rules changed, House seats are only reapportioned after the decennial census, which is every 10 years. The last one was in 2020, the next is in 2030. So after that, seats are redistributed among states, then states redraw district maps, aka redistricting. And that process takes years and is heavily shaped by state governments, by courts, and sometimes independent commissions. So there is no mechanism for instant seat changes, let alone overnight. So the meme is just fundamentally flawed. It makes it seem like, that these things are easily going to happen. And the political impact is also exaggerated. Yes, states with larger non citizen populations like California, Texas, Florida, and New York could theoretically lose some representation if those residents were not counted. But the shifts would likely be small, a handful of seats, not some sweeping flip of control. Some red states also have significant undocumented populations, and the meme seems to not care about that. It doesn't acknowledge that because it's a person being a partisan hack and also just stupid. And also, control of the House depends on dozens of competitive districts, not just raw seat allocation by state. So, even under that hypothetical, it would not guarantee one party takes back the House. So, the framing is misleading on purpose. The meme uses phrases like, without firing a single shot, to suggest a kind of strategic masterstroke. In reality, it's describing a legally contested idea with uncertain outcomes that would not and could not happen quickly. So that's not a hidden trick, it's a long, complicated policy fight. And, this meme makes it seem like this policy is something that could easily be implemented, when in fact it would possibly not be able to happen. So, what's being referenced, is Stephen Miller is supporting restricting how immigrants are counted or considered in policy. So, that part is real. He wants to do that. But the exaggerated claims about speed and impact are not something that can easily happen, and they probably will not happen. So the idea has been floated before, but it's legally shaky, slow to implement, and nowhere near as decisive as the meme claims. It's more of a political talking point than a practical flip the house overnight strategy. So, as usual, well, as has happened every single time I've addressed one of these memes, the meme is simply incorrect and stupid. And of course, this is also the agenda of fascists who are obsessed with making everything about bashing immigrants or some other group that's already marginalized. Personally, I am not an immigrant basher, so this idea does not instantly appeal to me. And hopefully, this country ends up spending less time bashing immigrants and more time just making America actually great. So, we've got a lot of work to do in order to actually do that, but bashing immigrants is not going to be how we get this country into a better place.